Is there anything that you would like to start with?
Uh, oh,
That's a question you didn't expect.
yeah. I mean, well, okay. Like, I actually do have some questions for you. Like, you coached macros for a long time, and so, but you're also clearly interested in skills. I'm super curious how that interacts for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely start with that. We don't have to do this in any structured chronological way, so I can just give you an answer right now. For me, I never wanted to present myself as a macro coach. I always saw tracking macros or calories the same way I see any other tool. It's just sort of like I always perceived it as something that people can utilize as sort of like a learning experience rather than an obsession or compulsion where if they hit these numbers, they're going to get this outcome. So my
Yeah,
approach was always that's not the main point of it. The main point is that you get into a habit of curiously examining nutritional labels on food just so you can get an idea and a sense of the quantity the quantity of calories that you are consuming per day.
yeah,
But for most people, no matter how many times Josh you explained that to them, they still skew towards this idea of if I hit these numbers, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to get my results. So you get here and there, you get clients who dig that approach and who understand what it actually is versus what really it should be. But I do prefer working with people who are not necessarily numbers oriented, who are open to changing their lifestyles, not in any way that I present myself as a life coach, like God forbid, but I do think that changing, stuff like food environment, changing habits, creating new behavioral patterns, I think all of that is absolutely not just necessary. I think that's mandatory if you want to have long lasting or hopefully permanent results such as that I've attained as well in my own with my own personal journey. I never consider myself to be like a macro coach, and I think people who are doing that are doing the disservice to people. I don't think there's value in macro coaching specifically. I think pretty much every single coach who was dependent on that sort of business model is going to become extinct if they haven't been extinct already, just because AI is taking over all the apps and everything like that. So why the fuck would you pay someone to calculate your macros for the day when you can just take photos, send it to ChatGPT, and you're going to get that for free?
yeah,
So
totally.
this is where I'm really happy that I never succumbed to that allure of easy work and
Yeah,
doing just robotic, boring work. I love working with people. I love communicating with people. My preferred way of checking in with people is getting on video calls. In my current business model, I don't do any forms, any written check-ins here and there maybe, but I generally prefer talking with people. So that's how I always approached it. I approach my coaching always from the standpoint when I get a new client, think of them as myself back in like 2009, 2010, when I was like around like 400 pounds, morbidly obese and like just like dying from
yeah,
from obesity. So I hope that gives you an answer.
yeah. That's cool. It's funny how similar we are in that respect. A lot of people would think I would never have a client track their macros, but when clients get really stuck, I'll have clients track their macros for like 2 weeks and see what they learn. Wow, do they like if someone's really stuck, if someone's doing a lot of the skills, but they're like, oh, it's not working, da, 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 and have them track macros for 2 weeks, they learn all kinds of things,
Yeah.
and then we take those things that they learned and we translate those back into skills or guidelines, right? Like
Mm.
maybe that changes the way they conceptualize a balanced plate,
Yeah.
or maybe that
Uh,
changes the way they conceptualize a snack or whatever, right? Like it
yeah.
changes their decision making in some way that we can carry forward, usually without the tracking. And
Yeah.
that's how I do it. But like when you said learning experience, I was like, yes, yeah,
I knew kind of we would agree on that because I've been a fan of your work for years now. So I'm not just saying that for the to kind of for you to like me. I'm just like that's kind of how I always approach it. And
yeah,
let's say someone has, and I'm going to be honest with you, I do have some clients who prefer that approach, who are very analytical. They like stats. They like to see everything in numbers. They are very hyper focused on hitting their numbers, but not just in the context of macros and calories, but also when it comes to their number of sets at the gym, number of reps, I have some clients who are even writing down stuff like tempo, like 3-1-2 or something like that. So I do have, clients who do that. But even with them, I try to help them understand that this is still something where you can develop some sort of dependency. So what I like to do with clients who prefer that sort of a little bit obsessive way towards numbers, when they go on a vacation, when they have some time off, I try to push them towards this idea of try to practice what you've learned for years tracking. Just like go into the open world and try to like pick food, pick ingredients, pick drinks, and try to kind of just like figure it out on your own. And then at the end of the day, you might put it into an app and see how close you get. And slowly and methodically, you get to a point where you kind of skew some people off tracking. It's not like there's something inherently wrong with tracking, but I also see tracking being potentially dangerous for people who put a lot of personal value and self-worth on hitting those numbers. And if they don't, they feel like a failure. They feel like they haven't succeeded. And if they miss a few days in a row, then the consistency or the momentum has gone. And then when they feel they failed, that can sometimes bring some sort of like binging episodes. They can do some sort of, sabotaging. So early in my career, I did a lot of mistakes. I'm sure you did as well. Forcing clients, like forcing them, right? Just trying to convince everyone to track because there is no other way. I can hear myself saying, like, how can you succeed at something if you don't measure it? So like, we have to measure everything, and you have to measure all the bites, licks, taste, and all that fucking bullshit, And so that's like one of the biggest mistakes that I've done early in my career, but it also taught me a lot, and this is also why I've developed this sort of mindset. And speaking of that, let me ask you: do you remember any of your past mistakes? I'm not saying you ever harmed anyone, but is there anything when you look back at your coaching circa 2004, 2005, when you started, if I'm not mistaken, when you look at those like first years of your coaching, like, do you remember anything that you either know right now was wrong, or you just fucking cringe when you think about it?
So everyone that I worked with in Seattle, if any of you are listening, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. So I started a big box gym in Seattle, and then I moved to Denver and trained out of my garage for a while, and then I went to another big box gym. But especially that first year, I was in a big box gym, and I was like following their program, right? Where they had a whole system in their computer, and you would enter in people's goals, and it would spit out like a meal plan with like the perfect calories. And like, I had no idea what I was doing. So people would be like, I'd be like, okay, what's your goal? And they'd be like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds. And they'd be like, and I'd say like, okay, how fast do you want to lose that? And they'd be like, 4 weeks. I'd be like, okay, so you just need to lose 5 pounds a week. And I'd like put that in the computer and it would spit out a plan that had like no food. And I'd give it to them and they'd do it. And I'm like, what was I thinking? And it's one of those things where like that had to go poorly a couple times for me to go like, I don't think this software is all that great, like maybe there should have been some guardrails. Like, so, I mean, like, I still remember I had this one client that, he'd set like he told me he had like a really aggressive weight loss goal. And I gave him this ridiculous meal plan that the computer spit out that they were like, it's registered dietitian approved computer program or whatever. I don't know. And so I gave him the official thing from the big box gym, had their logo on it. And he followed it and he lost a ton of weight. And he was like, one of my friends told me I'm losing weight too quickly. I'm disappearing. And I'm like, whoa, that's really freaky. And so what do? I go back to the computer and I'm like, add more calorie. But I mean, like the whole thing was just absurd. It was so, I mean, I was brand new. I didn't know anything. So there's that. But then there's also just like, I was just going to like trust this computer. We all just trusted this computer to spit out whatever it did. You put in and it just spit out what, like, it seems so. This was a big gym chain. This is a giant gym chain. Like the fact that they had no guardrails on the software at all.
That's awesome.
It seems a little concerning now. And so like everyone was okay, right? But like people were like this is ridiculous. And so we changed it. And I I guess just the level of blind faith that I had in that was as it's wild to think about now. It feels like a little reckless, but that's what we were all doing. All the trainers were just like, we don't know anything about nutrition. We're just gonna like have the computer spit you out a plan. And
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the flip side of that was like, so so it was a disaster for the people who could follow it.
Hmm.
And then there were a bunch of people who couldn't follow it, right? Because it just spit out like salmon and peanut butter and I mean, you're like
Just
it,
random ingredients.
yeah, it wasn't, man. So anyway, I look back at that and it's not great. And then after that, I stopped using their software. I ended up working for the same gym chain again in Denver, and I wasn't using their software. And that's when I started having people food journaling. And I was like, let's start where you're at. And people would like bring me diets. They'd be like, hey, I want to try this diet. What do you think? And I didn't know anything about anything. So I was like, I'm curious what'll happen. Let's try it out. And so people tried things that were like kind of okay, and people tried things that were ridiculous. I mean, like velocity diet where you got like one meal a day and you're doing like two protein shakes a day and like
Yeah. Yeah.
but also just like paleo was huge back then, and
Hmm.
Atkins,
Yeah.
and
So this was like mid
yeah,
2000s, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so anyway, it's just one of those things where like I didn't know how anything worked for a while, and so people just said like, "Hey, I heard about this. Can I try it?" And they tried it, and I did learn stuff from watching all of that and helping people do whatever they came up with. But a lot of those were pretty wacky. There were some wacky diets people showed up with, and so anyway, that's what my first few years was like that I now don't feel good about.
I think that's pretty much how most of us started. So it's not like you're using people as, subject in your own little lab of experiments, right? But that's unfortunately that's how we learn. And this
Yeah.
is probably and this is why we have to move out from Seattle to regain confidence, and hopefully enlightenment through that process. Just a tiny digression. Are you from Seattle?
No.
So you just live and work there?
Yeah. No, I'm from like Central Coast, California,
Okay,
and
okay.
I had lived down in LA and in Orange County for a while, and then I ended up moving up to Seattle for a few years. Super fun, like some of the most fun years of my life. But yeah, it was super weird. So I've been working at this big box gym, and like my girlfriend was there, and a bunch of friends there. And like some of my best friends were moving to Denver, and I'd just broken up with my girlfriend, and they
That'll
were
do.
like, "Come to Denver!" Like they, and I just went. I'd never been to Denver. I moved to Denver with them on 2 weeks' notice because it sounded like an adventure.
The reason why I ask is I always went to visit, and
Right on.
Seattle Supersonics were one of the reasons why I always went to visit Seattle. But
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed, but I'm rocking an Alice in Chains
yeah,
T-shirt, and
yeah.
like half of my upper body is essentially Seattle. So I have
Nah.
my right sleeve. So I have a right sleeve dedicated to Chris Cornell. My left one is dedicated to Lane Staley. And yeah.
Oh, dude,
So
dude.
yeah. I'm
Oh,
like I'm Seattle through and through, even though I never been there.
like I grew up on Seattle music scene. Like grunge hit when I got into music, and then when I lived in
Yeah.
Seattle, I actually lived with a bunch of jazz musicians. And so I ended up in like not like the rock scene, but I was in like the jazz scene, and then I had another roommate that ran an underground positive hip hop night, and so I ended up like in the Seattle music scene that is underneath the Seattle music scene. So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
it was a cool place.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad we had this digression. But speaking of mistakes early in the career, I'm happy and I'm glad
Yeah. What
to
about
not
you?
have hurt anyone.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
really
yeah.
happy about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I started something like a decade after you started, back in like from 2013. I want to say I've quote unquote completed my own transformation, got down to looking shredded and hating myself in the process. Going into
Wait, wait.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Can I ask about that?
Yeah.
So you lost 200 pounds and you got shredded, and you just said when you got shredded, you ended up hating yourself in the process. Tell me about that.
Okay, cool. So first of all, just wanted to make sure that no one like, pulls me out or exposes me. I have no fucking idea how much exactly I've lost. The reason why is because when I went into I lived in Croatia at the time as well. So when I went to a hospital, they literally could not measure me. They had this like fucking broken scale or something like that. The scale got me to like 160 plus kilos, I think, but they measured my circumference and everything, and they just kind of deduced that I was probably around like 170, 180 kilos, right? Which is like approximately like 400 pounds. So when I say I lost approximately 200 pounds, it's just easy on the tongue, and that's the reason why I'm saying it, right? But still, it's been quite a journey. I've lost a decent human being, just literally. I've lost another human being in body weight, and in the process, I'm gonna say, I know this sounds poetic, but I've lost a big part of who I was, and I'm really happy about that. I've built myself into a person I am today, primarily because of that whole experience, because that whole experience translated into other facets of my life. I want to also say that I haven't yet experienced a period of my life where I was so focused for so long as I was in that pursuit. I started off crazy.
How long did it take?
I started somewhere in like 2009, 2010, and it lasted up until the end of 2013.
Okay. That sounds legit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to a place where, you know what, like one of the best things ever that happened to me is I discovered this evidence-based, science-based nutrition and training kind of a scene, which was like you mentioned earlier, almost like an underground scene. So you got like few blogs from Lyle McDonald, 3D Muscle Journey, Eric Helms, Alberto Nunez. So I started like really just seeking, proper knowledge that for me made a little bit more sense than eating rice, broccoli, and chicken for the rest of my life. That also got me to by Mark Ripito, starting strength, right? To lean gains, to stuff that everybody else was doing back in 2000. But my initial approach was fucking terrible. I probably had days and the consecutive days where I was probably like closer to 10,000 calories than 5,000 calories. So I was overeating on a daily basis, right? Especially in a 2-year period after my grandparents who raised me got killed. That was the most depressive time of my life. I went through 2 suicide attempts at that point, and I gained ridiculous amount of weight during that period. Josh, honestly, like during that period of 2 years, I haven't gone out of my house like almost at all.
Yeah.
Only times when I went out is when someone would have to take me to the ER because I had all kinds of health issues. But to bring myself back to my original point, so imagine eating that much, and then literally overnight, I started challenging myself. I tried to eat as few calories as possible. So I had days and days, weeks and weeks where I was in between 600 to 800 calories. And that was the only time where I allowed myself to feel proud of myself. And if I didn't felt exhausted in the evening while reading a book, if I haven't felt like complete exhaustion and inability to move out of the bed, I would then do crazy shit like hill sprints in the fucking midnight, Yeah. And so I did stuff like P90X, insanity. I did everything that I could to lose as much weight as possible, just to gain confidence to get out and socialize and go to the gym, right? However, going to the gym started to become a habit because I would go to the gym early in the morning when no one was there. And so that's how kind of I started. But within the first 5 months, that got me to, I wasn't like in a full blown bulimia, but I was knocking at the doors because I discovered purging. It sounds so jolly, but like I discovered eating disorder that could help me enjoy food for a little while and then put myself into reset and recycle that, and then I could start over. That didn't last long because one of my first coaches, who was also a national professional bodybuilder, he told me, like, you are sacrificing yourself, you are here hitting the weights every single day, and you are just losing muscle. Like, there's no point. You have to decide whether you want to be fucking sick and so like He used a lot of words that I don't want to repeat, but he said, you have that option,
But
or
he
you can.
he said it in a way that you were able to hear it at that time.
Exactly.
Right?
So essentially, he didn't use that term, but he got me into this idea of recompositioning as a mean of building muscle and trying to lose body fat. So that saved me from a lot of excruciating pain and mental health issues, because I was so fucking terrified that I would have those terrible loose skin issues. That fear alone got me to a place where I, after that fiasco of just eating 600 to 800 calories, then started purging. After that shit ended, I went into a very long maintenance, and that recovered me quite significantly. I started noticing muscle gain. I started noticing that my physique is kind of developing to a point where I actually could look at myself in the mirror and be content with what I see. And that got me to a place where I was obsessed with the gym, but in a very positive way. Not in a way where, sometimes that obsession can go a little bit on the other side.
Yeah.
But I was dedicated, but I enjoyed every single workout. This wasn't something that I forced myself because of any external factor. It was completely, everything was internal, everything was pure joy and love. And also the gym was always a place where I socialized the most at that particular time. So for me, the gym was a trampoline towards having an extremely fun and I want to say successful social life that got me to this career as well. So kind of like, there you go. But you also asked me like why I hated myself when I got to my. Go ahead.
I think maybe you just answered it right at the end. But my first thought was like, so you were in this like deep grief and eating a ton to meter it, and then you went from that to this like obsessive eating and working out. And I was wondering if there was going to be a point where you like normalized that and the grief rushed back in. But it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, it sounds like getting that physical activity at the gym and that social life at the gym, I'm guessing that's what kind of supported you or stabilized you. Is that accurate?
That's partially yes, but context was a little bit different because it brought me back to myself. It rebooted me because I was always extremely social. I was always a class clown. I was getting into trouble. I was fist fighting with other kids at school, stuff like that. I was at the center of attention, and I always loved that. I always loved the spotlight. I always loved to make fool of myself, make fun of everyone else, but myself included. And then all of a sudden, I prevented myself from having those experiences because of what happened to my grandparents and because I blame myself for that. That's a completely different story. But that self-punishment got me to a place where I was literally having a near-death experience. This is something that we can discuss maybe later. You are correct. It's just like the context was probably a little bit different than you could imagine.
Yeah.
So as years progressed, so has my strength and my appearance as well. But that period between, I'm going to say 2012 and 2013, when I was so hyper focused on getting myself shredded, getting myself to around 10% body fat. That was anything and everything I thought of. Like every other aspect of my life suffered because I was so focused on seeing my abs. Right?
Yeah.
I have photos, all the photos just taken with digital cameras, but you can literally see the striations on my shoulders. You can see my ribs. And dude, that, for me to achieve that, for the extent of 3 to 4 months, I had to do protein sparing modified fast. I could not, because I was consistently just lowering my calories. And that was the only thing that I knew how. Just reducing my calories, never taking any diet breaks, never attempting to, establish some sort of a new settling point of my body weight, never giving my hormones and my mental health a reprieve. So I was consistently just reducing calories, and it got me to a place where, I can't do anything anymore. I've been plateauing for the past month. And at that point, Chronometer and MyFitnessPal were the only tracking apps. They weren't apps. They were just websites where you could track, you could track your shit. So I was obsessively, compulsively doing that. Dude, nothing budged. And then I discovered protein sparing modified fast, which for people who are watching and listening, if they're not familiar with this, that essentially is just you eating extremely low calories. My intake was in between 1,000 and 1,200 calories. And at that point, I was around like 200 pounds. And I just could not maintain that, dude. Honestly, Josh, I maintained those results for probably maybe 2 months max.
Yeah,
And
well,
that was it.
for the people listening, like a protein sparing modified fast is actually considered a fast. It's not even considered a diet, because if you don't have fat or carbohydrates, then it's kind of a fast, right? So like when you say you can't maintain, like no one can maintain it. It's different from like people that are on carnivore right now, which I'm not a huge fan of carnivore, but like they're getting quite a lot of fat. And on a
Mhm.
protein sparing modified fast, people aren't even getting that, you know? So like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Before you like, so I just wanted to highlight,
Yeah.
from a self-determination theory perspective, your journey is like really interesting, right? Because from self-determination theory, so for people at home, self-determination theory is one of the most robust and researched theories of intrinsic motivation and well-being. And it's the core is this idea that we've got three basic psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And when those are satisfied, that provides foundation for intrinsic motivation and for well-being to flourish. And what I heard in your story was, I heard how much you just loved going to the gym. There's like, that's like the highest level of autonomy, right? Is you're doing it just because you love it. And then relatedness, you had your whole social crew there. You had all your people there. And then competence, you were working with that bodybuilder, and you were saying like I knew what to do, and like I knew how to do it. And I knew, and so you had all of the three things. And they, when people have those three things, they tend to move from these really external forms of motivation that can absolutely work but tend to lower well-being, up through to like what really matters to them, up to pure enjoyment of doing. And then
Mm-hmm.
you flipped it to being obsessed with 10% body fat. And then all of those other three things suffered. Your autonomy suffered because you were driven by the goal. Your relatedness suffered, like you said, it was keeping you away from the other things that mattered to you. Your competence didn't suffer. It sounded like you were still like but like those other two took a big hit. And
Yeah.
anyway, I just thought your story was like a beautiful illustration of how autonomy, competence, relatedness in a fitness and weight loss program are related to our well-being.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought that was so cool. I just wanted to highlight that really quick.
No, what's cool is how you frame that, because I never seen it from those lenses. And I think I couldn't, just because I'm super biased and subjective, but you're looking at it from a different, like, bird's eye perspective. So
We're all
thank you
too
for
close to ourselves, for sure.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, what got you to that place of acquiring all that knowledge on behavior? On also, you are really a huge proponent of how should I put this? Sensible and viable approaches to stress eating, changing, eating habits and relationship with food and all of that. But you're also huge on behavior change and establishing healthy behavior. So in case my question was convoluted, what got you to that place of your career where you are putting so much effort into teaching people like healthy eating habits, and really in a position where, from like just abandoning Seattle because you were so ashamed and you hurt so many people with generic diets, so you kind of had to,
right? They ran me out of town. That's the
you had no choice.
I left in shame. So I was actually back at the same gym chain, but in Denver, and I was having clients. I was having clients like I was saying, I was having them the food journal and track calories, and I was starting a little bit to develop habits. But I actually was already using skills to start to develop habits. But I had one client in particular that was super, super, super motivated. She was amazing, like super hard worker, cared a lot, like did all the things and hit her goals. And it just seemed like such a grind. It seemed like such an unbelievable grind. I was like, I can't believe, and like it kept feeling like it would get harder every time she went on vacation and came back. It would be like vacation, free week, and
Oh.
then it would be kind of like starting over, and it would be so much harder each time. And I was like, it shouldn't get harder each time. Like if we were developing skills, it wouldn't get harder every time. And then I had another client that like also just super great client. Like it was this is the part that killed me. It was like my favorite clients were having the hardest time. And I had this other client that was like, Josh, I can track the calories, but like it's still not stopping me from eating at night. Like I just can't stop eating at night. What
Yeah.
do I do about that? And I had no idea. It wasn't that I had sort of an idea. I had nothing. I had no idea and I couldn't help her and I knew it and she knew it. It like hurt in my soul to go like I've got nothing for you. That sucks. And then there was a guy that I was working with that like could do it and then he couldn't and I couldn't figure out why. All of a sudden, like more and more I started seeing like this isn't enough. Like some of my favorite people this isn't working for. These are like smart, like super smart, motivated people who really care, who are really working really hard. And the issue isn't, like there are the trainers around me, they lack motivation, or whatever bullshit they had to blame their clients with. But it was really clear to me that I was missing. I was missing the tools to help them, and that killed me because I've been that person. At almost every fitness thing I've ever done, I've been the person that the standard stuff didn't work for. You know, I mean, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 3 years and was still a white belt and still sucked until I had one guy, one amazing black belt, was like, "Hey, you're doing like this fundamental thing wrong." Like and every single thing I've ever done, I've needed to find someone that didn't just follow the standard advice that everyone else was doing, could look at the principles and see what I needed.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be that for other people here, right? With eating. I wanted to be that because yeah, it just hurt my soul to have nothing. And so I started looking originally at like habits, and then I started getting into looking into habits, put me in touch with Coach Stephen Ledbetter, who got me into self-determination theory, and that got me into reading books, and that got me reading textbooks, and that got me into reading research, and then realizing I didn't know how to read research, and then going to school, learn how to read research. And so like and then somewhere along the way I started working with Georgie Fear, and we were doing hunger and fullness cue
I was just
stuff.
about to mention Georgie.
And then I'm in this way different world of teaching like hunger and fullness cues, and it's working for more people than before. But I still hadn't solved that I can't stop eating at night thing. It still hadn't got there. And then it was actually Georgie that sent me a research study on comparing like CBT versus ACT for like it was a really big, robust behavioral weight loss trial that lasted a year. But the thing that jumped out to me was that ACT made a bigger difference in that study than CBT for like stress eating, emotional eating, reactive eating, like you see food, you want to eat it. And that's where I'm like all the way back to that client from years ago that was can't stop eating at night. I was like, what if this is the key? And so I'm back in school, and one of my professors was an ACT researcher and all down that path. But it was that like, I didn't want to let those people down the way like honestly like most of my fitness coaches had different or even some of my doctor. I've had so many things in my life where I was the hardest case that
Yeah.
I didn't want to let those people down because they were me.
I hate this entire trend, especially on social media. In like recent years, you always had assholes. Just through social media, you have this huge accumulation of assholes just being extremely loud and being given the platform. I was raised essentially by my grandfather, who was a very old school regimented military kind of guy, and I learned what actual masculinity is versus what today's internet version of it is, right? So when you do something like you did, which is obsessively trying to find answers because you actually give a shit about people and you care about people, you are being perceived as kind of weak or insincere. Like no one cares that much about other people. And I fucking hate that. Because, and it's, you decided to help people, but in order for you to do so, you had to be obsessed with this one thing and seeking answers and getting help from mentors. And I think that's really, really cool to have that sort of a motivation, which, you know, is almost altruistic, you know, and I really respect that. And, you know, a shout out to Georgie Fear.
Yeah.
I had her a couple of times on my former podcast, and you just want to shut up and listen, because everything she says should be textbook. And you know, while you were talking about behavior stuff, I just wanted to say I see a lot of similarities between you and Georgie Fear.
We worked together for 3 years. When I was on the speaking circuit, I'd get kind of a lot of shit sometimes, right? Like I'd have after giving a speech, I'd have like 2 lines of people that wanted to talk to me, the people who were into it, the people who wanted to tell me how horribly wrong I was. And the thing is, I'm all about behavior.
Huh?
And if I really thought that there was a time where if I really thought that like a meaner way of going about it, or more dogmatic way of going about it, would have produced better behavior, I totally would have done it at one point in my career. Now I'm also looking at well-being. But the reality is, behavior is still my, like, contextual behavioral science is my core. Pragmatically, I want to change the behavior that people are hiring me to change, right? And I don't have my clients track macros. If they do, they don't do it for very long. But we track behavior all the time, and I'm ramping up their behavior all the time.
Yes.
And so the thing is, I mean, one, all my clients are like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, you're asking me to sit with my feelings and be able to be with cravings without eating, and like check in with my values, right? And make a values-based choice, even when it's hard. But my clients are changing the hardest behaviors in their lives. It's not soft. Like,
exactly.
You know? So anyway, it just, that always seemed really funny to me, because I'm like, you're kind of steamrolling over things to hit some sort of, you know, I mean, like, actually being there in your life when it's hard and making the choice that really takes care of you, that's legit, right? You could argue that that's the definition of grit, you know?
Yeah, man, I agree. But grit can be perceived through the lenses of Full Metal Jacket's drill sergeant.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're not that guy, you're not a man. So if you're talking about feelings, you're feminine and you're a bitch.
Yeah.
And if you do that, we're essentially just coddling people into remaining the same and putting everyone who cares about people and who takes their feelings into consideration, who takes other facets of this entire transformation process into account, rather than just laziness, which I honestly rarely encounter, like specifically just laziness.
Yeah.
But then they perceive it as you're just essentially coddle people into client retention, right? You're just indefinitely coaching the same people. And there's a lot of fucking insecurities and inadequacies of those specific characters who are spewing nonsense like that. I think a lot of it comes from a very skewed perception of masculinity. And this is why I'm mentioning masculinity. I'm not mentioning it from some random fucking reason. It always comes from a place of fear and probably subconscious understanding that you are not really adequate to be a coach, because the only thing you know is how to drill people, and that's something that anyone can do. We just gotta choose the more sensible route and the more elaborate and deeper route. Now, obviously, you do have pendulum swinging the other way as well, where you have people who should not be coaches on that side of the fence, which is, you know, taking body positivity to a harmful degree, general toxic positivity. I fucking can't stand that. At some point, you have to confront a client or a loved one and have that tough, difficult conversation and give people tough love. It's really not
You have to still be straight with people.
No, but you always have to do that, regardless of what your approach is, because confronting people is essentially what they're paying you for. I am not here to just listen to you and just give you advice. I'm here to challenge and confront everything that you believe about yourself. And we have to take great care of our scope of practice. We have to stay in our lane, but you will always have, no matter what you do, no matter what kind of a coach you are, no matter how many firm barriers you put out when it comes to referring out, in order for you to actually listen to people, you still have to, at the very least, have some sense in how to approach people from that mental health perspective. Like I said, without meddling into like other scopes of practices, without me pretending that I'm this, psychoanalyst or whatever, right? You have to connect with people on that human level.
Okay, so one thing that just jumped out at me about you were talking about scope of practice and like scope of practice and human touch and not blurring into therapy. I think it is well within our scope of practice. So like I mentioned self-determination theory earlier.
Okay.
Like supporting people's autonomy, competence, relatedness is something that I think that any coach can do, right? I think we can support people's autonomy by co-creating plans with them. I think we can support their competence by helping them build skills, and I think we can help them be related by essentially like being a cool person and not judging them. And that's an amazing thing that we can do for people's well-being that's drastically different from the entire rest of the fitness industry and well within our scope. Like within our scope. And then from like a contextual behavioral science standpoint, we can let people feel their feelings and not paper over it with toxic positivity like you were talking about. And we can talk to people about their values, what matters to them and what it looks like to make choices from what matters, what deeply matters to them, rather than just hitting some sort of societal standard or some kind of external goal. And I'm not anti-goal, but I think we have to temper it with looking at what matters to them broadly and how their goals fit into their life, And I think those are amazing things we can do for people's well-being that are well within scope.
Yeah, but when you look at it from that perspective, so I'll give you another example: motivational interviewing. So if you take motivational interviewing, if you pick up certain basics and certain elementary aspects of it, it can be very useful. But if you go super deep into it and you try to replicate it verbatim, then you can succumb to this, what the fuck have I dragged myself into? My client is crying and telling me about her childhood traumas. How do I handle this? So, maintaining our scope of practice, like you said, even with self-determination theory, you can have all three aspects and guide the client through those, weave your coaching into it. Yeah. But then again, dude, a lot of times, well, let me backtrack. I think if you're going to do or have that approach, you need to have enough tact and enough self-awareness not to delve super deep, and to know when to refer out and to know how to refer out. And this is why I'm big on scope of practice, because scope of practice can sometimes be taken super literal. Like, I'm not a registered dietitian and I cannot recommend you this particular meal because it has this micronutrient composition that I know is going to help you, but because I'm not a registered dietitian, I can't do it, which I think is bullshit. But then again, you have someone who has, IBS, they have to be on like a low FODMAP diet or something like that, or you have someone who's anemic and then you fuck up their iron intake. So like you can hurt someone. So just knowing what you can navigate and what you're competent, because a lot of times competence is mistaken by confidence, and that's where I'm not disagreeing with you at all. At all. But I think for someone like you, for someone like Georgie, those things they go very easy because you have that experience, you have that knowledge, you have that self-awareness, and you truly do understand the intricacies and the depth of human behavior.
I'm also not going to I'm going to explicitly let them know that we're not going to process their trauma. That that's
exactly.
not my scope, right? And
or start with that.
Yeah, and I mean like sometimes people will tell me about things, and I can just say like, hey, I'm a human and I've been through here are things that I've been through, and so that sucks and that's hard, but that's about as far as I can go. Like we're gonna build skills on top of the life you've already had. I'm not gonna process any of that, that's not my we're doing skill practice.
I've seen it with a lot of my peers. I went through several certifications. and I've been to a lot of seminars, and you do have a lot of people in our industry who are not qualified to do anything of sorts, like you just mentioned,
Sure.
not understanding their
Yeah.
scope of practice, and they dabble into something like CBT because they think like cognitive behavioral therapy does not necessarily have to be therapy. So let me just acquire these skills and I'm going to project them onto my clients. And then
Yeah.
you get the instant reflex, the knee-jerk reflex from a client started crying or something like that. And then you're like, fuck, this is a difficult client to work with. And yeah, because you just kind of open those doors. So this is why I'm saying why you need to have tact and self-awareness to navigate and balance, where you can be compassionate, you can show empathy, but on the other hand, you can really screw up someone by pretending like from the get-go to be their friend, and so they can open up to you, whatnot. I think that's asinine. And for everyone listening to or watching this podcast and thinking, you know what, I need a coach, I think I'm ready to do that, just know that during a consultation call or during your first interaction with a coach, just pay attention if they are oversharer. Just pay attention if they are trying to pretend to be your friend all of a sudden. Those are absolute red flags that we a lot of times ignore. Like why? And
way
you
way
have
too much, way too fast to create like a
way
false
too much,
sense
way too
of-
fast. Like I understand that from a client's perspective, because
Yeah.
I get a lot people who are struggling with morbid obesity and obesity for decades. They learn about my story. They figure out that I'm a good coach. They figure out that I actually care about people. We start connecting and building rapport. They get quite emotional. I had many clients crying on a consultation call without me even provoking it.
Yeah, of course.
But
this is heavy
Instead of
stuff.
instead of like putting up my guard defense, and trying to step away from it, I try to navigate it as best as I can as a human being who just met this other human being, rather than, because I know people in our industry, dude, who are seeking that sort of response from a client because they can manipulate them.
Oh, yeah.
And we talk about scope of practice, but there are a lot of bad actors from a sphere of registered dietitians in our industry as well. So you get a lot of people with credentials. You get a lot of people with the MD prefix who are absolute fucking bullshit of people,
PhD.
So exactly. So people need to be, I think people are becoming more and more selective of, who they hire as a coach. And I'm not here to shit on other people and promote my own service or something like that. But ultimately, I am saying that people need to pay more attention to red flags in like initial interactions with their coach.
It's hard though, because what you're talking about is the people that are basically they're doing like Mel Robbins's like whole manipulative thing.
That's
But
that's the type.
They're doing it in sales calls, right? They're like a
Yeah.
they're like a little version of that. They're doing that on the consultation, and it's super manipulative. And the problem is manipulative people are good at the problem is that they're good at their whole show. They're good at their whole
Yep.
thing.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. I mean, like Mel Robbins has millions of followers. Huberman's got millions of followers. Atia's got millions of. I mean, like
Our industry is
They're-
so fucking
they're
strange,
good.
dude.
They're good at what they do.
Yeah, and Josh, such a pleasure, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you
was
so
fun.
much. Can you please tell people where they can find you? And I'm going to put the links of your book and everything.
Yeah. So I'm on Substack at Josh Hillis. I'm on Instagram at Joshua Hillis. And those are probably the two best places to find me. Obviously, my book's on Amazon.
Do you have your book near you, anywhere near you?
Yeah. Lean and strong.
Lean and strong, yeah. That's awesome. That's pretty cool, man. Thank you. Have weird accents, but like they possess certain level of knowledge and eloquency, and that's kind of what I want to do. I know I sound arrogant as shit right now, but I'm just kind of fed up with myself.
In a good way.
Like it's just like I always knew my worth,
Yeah.
but imposter syndrome always blocked me, and now, because the industry has turned into such a huge fucking cesspool, you're daily exposed to people with high degree of confidence who are just spewing nonsense, and I just got sick and tired of it, and I'm like, look, I can't wait for Josh anymore. I have to do this. I have to do something. Josh is, sipping tea with Georgie Fear and talking about behavior research while you have Gary Brecka selling fucking bullshit for, thousands and thousands of dollars. And yeah, man, that's why we're losing it.
Well, there is an element of the nonsense is easier to explain.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that where I'm sick of myself is I think there's some work to do in terms of like packaging better. The real material still needs to be communicated with some narrative, with some feeling, like sharper. And I think I haven't done the work to make it sharp enough that people can get it. And like the nonsense I feel like lends itself to like sound bites a little bit better. So like I've got to do more work. And I have to do that. I think I have to do that. I think that's one of the things that's probably missing.
Dude, you're an author, and you're an author of a fucking amazing book.
Thanks.
And no, I truly mean that. So like, if you're an author who wrote a book just so you can put in your Instagram bio that you're an author, I wouldn't have you on. But you have credentials, you have experience, you have results, you have social proof, you have everything. So I think what you need to invest more into time and probably finances is into finding someone who you can resonate with, who can teach you better social media game. Because that's the missing ingredient. Because you have probably consistent flow of clients and work, and you're maybe satisfied with your financial status and whatnot, right? So like maybe you're not going into that like more materialistic kind of a goal, right? But
make a bigger difference.
Exactly. So if you want to do that, you have to do what I just started doing, but I believe I'm on the right path. And I'm going to invest a lot of money and time. I just need to figure out, an algorithm has to find me out first in order for me to figure out where I'm going to invest money into. Thank you so much for this once again.
Yeah.
I hope we stay in touch. I really hope we stay in touch. And is it better for me to contact you on Instagram for our next episode? Maybe I'm going to send you some ideas in the next couple of days, couple of weeks. I'm going to send you some ideas, and you don't have to oblige at all. But if you do have time, and if you find this format interesting,
we can do it again.
I think I would love that. So is Instagram's
good. Facebook's good. I'm terrible by email. Facebook or Instagram are the ways to go.
Yeah. Okay, man. And please do me a favor. Okay, let's make a pact. Okay, we're both going to invest more time into trying to make a bigger change, right? So like I know that I'm making change on a more like intimate, personal level with my clients. But
for
like,
sure. Yeah.
On the grand scheme of things, like that really doesn't matter much when you look at where this industry is going, because industry is just snowballing to a darker place.
Yeah.
Regardless of how many, evidence-based people.
We need more people like us with platforms, with like legit platforms that, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, you gave me 1.5 hours of your time. I'm grateful. I love you. I love your work. I love the fact that you've been in Seattle. I also love the fact that, like Supersonics, Seattle banished you.
I love that you got a Chris Cornell tattoo on your arm. Like Chris Cornell is like oh man, like that was Soundgarden was it, man. His solo stuff. Anyway, like big Chris Cornell fan. I mean,
huge.
House of Chains, can't go wrong there either.
Yeah,
they're probably like the grunge band, but Soundgarden was more me.
That's awesome. For me, it was a little bit more in the beginning. It was more Alice in Chains, because I told you like I had like 2 suicide attempts before. Like in total, I had 3. Yeah. But like in that darkest time, I resonated a lot with Lane Staley, and just like his lyrics, they save me. That's what I believe. That was the very first tattoo that I ever done, and I committed the sleeve to Lane Staley.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Amazing.
So weirdly, I haven't planned that, but weirdly, like there's a lot of Seattle on my body permanently.
Yeah.
So dude, once again, thank you so much. I'm gonna leave you now.
Thank you so much. And have a good day. Keep me posted. Collaborate me on all the things. Instagram, YouTube.
Absolutely.
I want to be connected. Cool.
Yeah, we talked a lot. and I have a lot of material, so I'll probably use this and our following conversation and produce probably like short form content here and there for like the next like 3 to 4 months. So
cool.
I'm gonna be tagging you, intermittently.
And yeah, like as you're going through it, if any of the stuff like didn't work, then feel free to cut it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm not here just to produce quantity, for God's sake. I'm here to like just make, content that makes sense and that's, hopefully engaging. So and obviously I just started. So like don't be disheartened by the fact that we're not going to get response from my platform as much as we're going to get it from yours. And so whenever I tag you or something like that, exactly.
I just need content.
I'm
glad to be out here. Anyway, dude, now I have to bounce.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. This is great.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
You're awesome. Thank you. Bye. Love you.